panel afterwards because we will be crisp on timing. So let me present first myself. I'm Saskia van Uffelen. I'm having different hats. I'm CEO for Ericsson in Belgium and Luxembourg. But I'm also, and that's most likely why I'm here, the digital champion for Belgium, working for helping Europe and helping the federal government of Belgium in order to handle the digital transformation with a certain sense of urgency. And that brings me also to the subject. Digital transformation is not something easy. We have heard it in sessions for those who have been to the session this morning. And we have people here in the room which were on stage. Pretty interesting. And also, how can we create confidence and trust in future instead of making all people anxious? And if I talk about people, then I do not necessarily mean us, but I certainly have a lot of passion and focused on the younger people. So how can we help education to transform in a digital world? How can we help our children to follow the right competences? And certainly, how can we better link industry and education towards the employability? And that's the idea of internships, is how can we help young people to have a right skill set, but also maybe a sense of experience before they join companies like mine. So and for this we have a fantastic panel who also were volunteering or kindly motivated to be present here. So you may make the choice yourself. We have people from the business, we have people from the academic world, we have even people outside Europe, so that will also certainly be a value add. So may I call on stage Sarah Atkinson. Sarah is Vice President for CA Technologies, but also having other hats in sustainable entrepreneurship with a focus on STEM business and diversity and inclusion projects at CA. Domingo is a colleague of mine. Domingo is the digital champion for Portugal, but also a digital entrepreneur, and that will also certainly bring interesting input to the internship. Paola is rector of the University of Italy. Paola, I'm looking forward to have your input on the academic side with a specific point of attention for the universities. Mr. Wang, I will limit it to that, Deputy Director General Cyberspace and Administration of China. Like mentioned, would also be interesting to have your views or what can we learn what's happening in your region. Svenja de Vos is CTO of LeaseWeb, a small spot of publicity. LeaseWeb is a cloud hosting company. But it's important that she will also represent the industry, and also your expectations as a CTO is certainly valuable. And then we have Fabio, last but certainly not least. Fabio, you can take this seat. Fabio represents a large organization of SMEs. But important to say, not only SMEs in ICT, but also SMEs outside of ICT, and that will be certainly one of the aspects. For practical reasons, audience, you also have to work. So you're allowed to use your smartphones, not to read, but to connect to the Mentimeter. I think we will show what you have to do, if not done yet. To activate the code, because there will be two questions mentioned on the Mentimeter were almost towards the end. We will discuss about a few subjects, but we also would like to have your meaning on the answer of two questions. So please participate during the sessions, give your choices, that we can use it at the end of the session for the closing questions and answers. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here. Maybe I'll kick off with an open question, talking about reality and giving experiences to the people in the room. Maybe we can share people who have already results or experiences with internships from the different angles. I think, Domingo, you have something to say about internships that you have already experienced. So go ahead.
Yeah.
Wait a second. Your mic is not.
Hello?
Yes.
Yeah. Hi. Well, thank you for inviting me to be in the panel. And yes, well, I think it's a great opportunity because I've had experience already with having interns in the company and giving them digital skills. So one thing that we do is we do with for big companies. I have a project, a social impact project that it's called Code for All, and we teach, we turn unemployed people into programmers through a very intensive boot camp. So in 14 weeks, 650 hours, we turn with 98% employability rate, we turn unemployed people into coders, programmers. We teach them Java and JavaScript, and because that's like around 70% of the market. So I think that, you know, a lot of companies that really have strong problems in these areas, they can't find talent, you know, they could actually train their talent inside the companies using these internships. So I think, you know, let's see how it works, you know, because ideas, they are great, and this looks like a really great one, but let's see how they actually become implemented.
So you give them a kind of a digital bath with a guarantee on employability,
yes,
in order to stimulate also the
exactly.
positive
So
answer.
you can get people out of unemployment, train them in your company, and actually get them a job.
Okay.
And one of the great things that we had in terms of our experience is that you can, you know, we've trained ballerinas, we trained architects, sound musicians, filmmakers. So it's not up only to engineers, you know.
We'll come back on the background of the people later, if I may. I think you also have experiences in your domain with internships. So maybe you have also a mic. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes. Hopefully you can hear me okay. So for CA Technologies as a software company, obviously skills are absolutely crucial, as they are for our customers and pretty much everyone here. And for us, I think that the defining moment, or one of the defining moments, was our pledge that we made to the original Grand Coalition. And for us, it was really an opportunity to examine what we were doing in industry to really kind of pay it forward and make a difference to the skills gap. So we took the opportunity to realign all of our social responsibility programs, and each of our 2,000 employees in Europe has 5 days a year to basically do volunteering. So we put in place a number of programs with organisations like CSR Europe, Deploy Your Talents, to enable our staff to go out, a sort of an army of ambassadors, and actually work with schools and universities. And as part of that, we have 2 internship programs. In the UK, we have a program which has been running for a few years now, and that specifically recruits from a degree course called the IT Management for Business, which again CA was instrumental in defining the curriculum, because we want people to come into the workplace with not just technology but with business skills as well. So that ability to apply technology to have business impact, which is super important. And the internships actually embed the students on their gap year. In the UK, they have a sort of sandwich course, and they come when then they go back and finish their degree, and that embeds them, and they get the opportunity to work with experts in the business. They get to, you know, use technologies which they maybe don't get access to at universities. You know, leading edge. They get trained, etc. And then in Prague, we have a software engineering program, which we partner very closely with the Czech Tech University, and we actually also ensure that some of their curriculum makes those students very employable when they leave university, and we have a program there as well. So we fully support this.
Okay, great. Just a question for the universities. So we talk about the word which is internship. So normally it's coming in the project plan as presented by the Commission. The idea is to align it a little bit with the frame of working of Erasmus. So we offer the students an opportunity to have an additional layer to their competences. In what kind of sense do you see that could be really a value add also for the university? Because it should be a value add for the student, but I think it's also should be strategic for the university.
Actually, I think that the second part is more interesting than the first part. The first part, to some extent, is already done through Erasmus placement, so we have some experience in that direction. What we do not really know is instead a feedback in terms of what kind of education and background should we provide to students in order to be actually efficient in what they are doing, or efficient in terms of exploiting as much as possible the opportunity of having an internship. And it's more valuable for non-IT or ICT people rather than for ICT people that are, to some extent, just already more convinced of the value, and they are also able to choose the right place to go. But not for the other. So I think that it would be very much valuable for us, and this means that we should also find a way to get the feedback and actually make it valuable for us.
Mr. Wang, I will come to you in a second, but I just would like to know, Fabio, you're representing a lot of SMEs in Europe, IT companies, non-IT companies. We're talking here all these days about digital transformation, the need and the gap of digital skills. Is it a reality, firstly? I mean, or do you see it's a non-subject of discussion? We are fully in line with the skill set of what we have. Supposing that the answer will be yes, there is a gap. What is the sector then expecting as an output? Because we are talking about we send people to an internship. What should we deliver as an output in order to be sure that we are aligned education between business?
The second question, what is it?
So
we can speak about this topic for hours. So, okay.
So do it in 3 minutes then.
No. In all topics in all area, we need to have more and more skills, technical skill, business skills, soft skills, and so on. Internship is a very important way for our associations. Entrepreneurs, companies are accustomed to use internship. Our association has for 100,000 members in Italy, so we every day use internships. In fact, we support also the European initiative pledging this initiative. Of course, the angle is a little different between ICT and non-ICT company. ICT company aim to get more efficiency, more upskills. The non-ICT company aim to have more soft skills in the social skills.
Can you just make it a little bit more concrete? What do you mean by soft skills?
For instance, the entrepreneur has no time to dedicate to much. Don't have too much time to dedicate to introduce the young people into the companies. So. People have required to have self-employment, self-activity, must be high level of independence. And the companies can teach them the delivery time, the concept of life learning, long life learning, social, environmental, and so on.
So what I hear you saying is it's first, if it's an ICT company or another company, we both need, one hand, technical competences, and on the other hand, also the social aspect is one of the elements also which came up in the discussion, robots or people. I think the people should continue to focus on what people, and then if you say empathical behavior, entrepreneurship, good attitude are people skills which will certainly continue to evolve.
Technical skills are only an element.
It's only an element. Mr. Wang, so you've heard a little bit some ideas of Europe. Is China all blue sky, or are you confronted with the same challenges as we have here in Europe?
Thank you, Ms. Chair, and I'm glad to introduce the overall situation of China. In fact, China have witnessed great development on digital economy development. In fact, in last years, the aggregate digital economy volume of China have hit 3.3 trillion US dollar, and which account about 30% of overall GDP of China. Mm-hmm. Of course, regarding when we talk about the digital development of China, there are many stories behind that. But today's topic is the skills. So I would also make some introduction of China's situation. But generally, I think the internet skills should include two aspects. The first one, I think, should be the friendly digital environment for all the people. Mm-hmm. That means this environment should not be to the young people, should be to the university students, but also to the aged people, to the young child. I think Chinese people have get a lot from that friendly environmental. In fact, for instance, my father is 84 years old people. He began to read news via smartphone 2 years ago.
And you learned it himself, or you followed the course?
He just used smartphone, and I just teach him. He never read newspaper anymore. He just read, news on web. Even for my child, he is a 10 years old boy. He tends to use social networking to keep contact with his classmates.
Yeah, but it says a question also. I mean, I've also 5 kids, and they do as if some of them are digital native, the real generation of swiping on the television and saying that it doesn't work. But we still need some more specific competences, not only to use it, but also to make it. So yes. My question is on the educational system, what is a little bit the subject here. Do you also have the challenge on increasing the digital competences for the delivery part?
Yes, madam, I just want to make the first aspects to complete. I mean that the friendly digital environment is critical to the innovation, digital innovation of our society. Many entrepreneurship of China, internet entrepreneurship, entrepreneur of China is of no any technical skills on technical skills on ICT. Mm-hmm. Mr. Jack Ma, his major is English. He know nothing about ICT, and even a new founder of a sharing bike company called Mobike. The founder is a journalist. Why they can succeed? Because they have internet way of thinking. They know what the internet could provide you because they have a very friendly digital environment. Mm-hmm. That's my first point. Of course, for the second point, beside the internet thinking way, we also have to enough people to provide the technical solutions. So, in fact, China also have a big systems. We have regarding the education systems, we began provide the computer education from the primary school, and we also have many public training institution to provide public ICT training, which requires some charges. At last, the many ICT or even traditional company also provide ICT training because they have enough competition ability to deal with the marketing. That's my general.
Okay, so
introduction.
great.
Thank you.
A point which will come back on the age of realizing or creating digital skills. But Svenja, I have a question for you, being a CTO of a company. I suppose you're also looking for the white sheep with 5 legs at the right market price and timing. Can you find them? No.
Not in my own country.
No. So my question to you is: we talked about outputs. Could you, if you would be the European institutions, we could stimulate the internships. In the ideal case, what should for you be the 2 most points which we need to focus on outputs if we stimulate internship?
Well, I think, first of all, I think a lot of these programs are focused on coding, which I think is great. But I think in addition to that, we need people that really deeply understand how the internet works, how cybersecurity works.
Yep.
Because, I mean, without that, the people that learn coding cannot do their jobs either. And I think from that level, if we measure output, I would say really get people to understand, or get a training program for people to understand how the internet works. So the deep internet, how to build a cloud, how to do cybersecurity. I think that is one. And 2, I think we're focusing a lot on universities. I think that's good. But I know a lot of very, very smart and talented people who have never finished university and who are sitting there every evening, every weekend thinking of the most craziest things out there. And I think we need to find those.
Yeah.
And for me, the most important skill, I mean, you talked about skills as well, I think is the speed of change.
Yeah.
I mean, we learn something today, and in 4 months from now, it's all technology.
Yeah.
So I think that's a skill that needs to be taught in the school very early. Yeah.
So maybe to clarify for the Bentimeter, on the first question concerning digital skills, I think you see high, medium, or low. But what we mean is high is the real techies, the ones we really need to build the cloud and to do the technical stuff. The medium is just the sake of definition, but it's more how can we create an additional layer of a digital competence which is good enough in order to do web design or do social analytics and those kind of things. So that just to put in perspective on the different categories which is given. You mentioned universities. You are in the educational system. Although we need to start very young, but let's focus a little bit on high schools and universities. Are they ready in order to transform their organization to deliver an output on digital transformed students, or is it still some time to do?
No,
because she wants to hire tomorrow, so I just want to know if the sector is ready.
Actually, I wanted to follow her point. First of all, I mean, we all agree that we have to start very quickly, because being quick means, you know, having the computational thinking as something natural that comes with you, and this starts very early. We have a program in Italy, and we're trying to do that, but it's still experimental. Now I think that what we are discussing now is what we can do now in order to fill a little bit the gap in between what it is needed and what we provide. And that's, just to go back to the internship, I mean, how can we use these internships? I mean, from my point of view, no, university I don't think are ready, at least I'm talking on my side, in the Italian side. I mean, regulation is very strict, it's very, very, very difficult to change and to adapt quickly to new needs. But I think that these instrument can be very useful to actually partially adapt inside the program we have. We can still do a lot, but so we need input, and I think that we need input from industries, and you know, these jobs are coming. Nobody knows which jobs there will be, no? But now I think we can at least start working on that direction.
Okay, I hear low-hanging fruit, so let's already use this as a quick win to progress, and then in parallel work on the transformation of the educational sector. But just a practical question. I mean, I'm a CEO. I sometimes have a stagiaire, which is there for 3 weeks. I sometimes have the impression that it's a burden for me as an organization. It's a burden for the student, and I'm not really feeling happy. So, with your experience on being a digital entrepreneur, how long should that internship be to be a good timing?
Well, from my experience, and I've had a lot of people doing internships, I think that, you know, the minimum for me should be 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
Just because, you know, a lot of times people take like 2 to 3 months just to understand what the hell is happening in the company, what's happening to their lives and to themselves. You know, they don't, you know, they just arrived, they landed in a different world. They need to know what people are doing, you know, what the company is doing, what is expected from them, you know, how can they be useful, what can they learn, and they're really interested in learning inside the company.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, if they are quick, then they can take more time. You know, another 3 months would be to gain some experience. You know, and then from that, from 6 to 1 year, I think that would be the ideal in terms of an internship. You know, 6 months to have an idea and to already start producing some work, and then 1 year, I think it would be enough for him to feel comfortable at what he's doing and to actually taking, you know, an experience to another job or even stay in the company. I think that, you know, when an intern is really good and he delivers on what you're asking, you want to keep him, you know. I've always kept I always try to keep the interns that I get into my company.
So it is indeed, at least, like you're saying, at least 6 months and beyond to have
so.
Give a win-win for both sides. Sarah, a question for you, because you're also responsible for projects like diversity, inclusion, those kind of things. A question, obviously, which I need to ask, would be ashamed if I didn't do. How can we stimulate, Charlie, you're here, listen to your question. How can we stimulate more women, girls, in order to answer those opportunities for internships and bring them to more digital skills activated?
It's the $1 million question, actually. I think just a comment, the win-win thing is super important. And one of the, I guess, benefits that we've seen in our business is, you know, by bringing in lots of young, energetic talent, it really helps us think differently.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the benefits, you know, I can't sort of shout about them enough, really. We have found just tremendous benefits all across the business. And I'm also just want to say one of our interns is actually here today. So Naomi, thank you for being here. To get to the gender point, I guess from my perspective and also with my Tech UK hat on is, you know, we see the issues much earlier in the pipeline.
Yep.
And I know we're talking about universities, but you know, I can't not talk about this. You know, when you see young girls engaging in science projects, sort of 6, 7, 8, 9, they're excited. You know, they're absolutely on the same page. And then something happens between that sort of 9 and 11-year-olds where, you know, I don't know whether it's sort of gender stereotyping or more sort of self-awareness or more this isn't cool anymore. And then you kind of start to see a drop-off in the teen years. And that's where I think industry and government and society really needs to examine what we're doing. You know, what is the gender stereotyping that is happening that's putting these young girls off from pursuing something which they could be fantastic at, and they could really help us address go away towards addressing the skills gap. So I think we all have to work hard at that, and I think we need a lot more role models. We need a lot more women in business, in society, that are proud to be involved in these activities, that are willing to stand up and willing to talk about it, so that they can aspire to these things. And I think a programme in particular we've just kicked off, we're proud to be the first sponsor of in the UK, is called People Like Me, and it's all about providing role models to young girls. And it's actually based on a piece of research that was done where girls, when they talk about themselves, they tend to use a lot more adjectives. And so the programme itself, I won't go into too much detail, but it kind of uses that language so that they can relate to it. And then it actually presents to them roles and jobs, largely in technology for our business, that they've probably never heard of, they've never thought of. And then it shows them young women that are working in those roles today. So again, it's all about helping them on that journey. And then again, I think when you go into the university, you know, the numbers just drop off dramatically. And for us, it's a real challenge to recruit that.
But you asked, you put the point specifically, it's you have to translate. I'm also, for years, working in engineering world. I had to translate the way of communicating already on recruitment. I mean, if you read the open postings, they are written in a male way, so we have translated them in order to make them more attractive. I'm not a techie myself. I normally should give physical education, so some things can happen. But just for you, if you hire, do you still hire on the CV and the background, or people like me who have, or a master in history or a ballerina, should they also be capable of joining the internship program?
Maybe not the ballerina, I'm sorry, but but from a, I mean, what we're looking for is problem-solving skills.
Yeah.
And that's not a skill that's per se on the tech education. I mean, biology or any other university study would be enough as well. I mean, you hire on potential and you hire on personality.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the most important thing. And the reason for having a university degree is just to show the thinking level, but the rest is the person itself.
Is it a good idea in order to give the sector, and I'm meaning ICT and non-ICT companies, more talents available with the right competences to go outside of the classical profiles of what we think to help the open postings?
Absolutely agree. I can give you an example, practical example. Recently, one our member in Italy, a very small company, they are 5 people. They has won international Webby awards for the most beautiful website. Yeah, a great honor for them and for us.
Mm-hmm.
The owners of the company are 2 young people. One has a degree in philosophy. The second one in Italian literature. Both of them, of course, have a great passion for ICT, for technology, but their background is a humanistic background. It's a senior. Coming back to women, I noticed that this morning 3 or 4 winners were young women. It's a good signal, I think.
Yeah. Coming back a little bit to your experience being in another continent, the search for talents with digital competences. Do you have also specific focus points, and do you also do it spread over what I hear here, all studies, all genders, all ages, or can you just share us a little bit of your experiences?
You mean the selection of the talent?
Yeah.
I think we will still rely these topics rely on to the digital environment, because in fact more people want to set up their startups company, so they will try to try to set up their own team. In their team, they have ICT talents, they have commercial talents. All the people should be work together. So generally, I think it's still the entrepreneurship drive the whole thing's working. At the same time, as I know that many founder of internet startups comes from just how to say fans on games or fans on some things, because they in their early age they play online games. They want to get more things online games, so they had to learn the coding by themselves. And finally, they know the technology of coding, and finally they will set up their own startups.
Okay.
So that's his story. But for the education, for the skills improvement, just provide the digital workers to provide the technical solutions. They are not, the innovation creators.
Okay. You as a potential customer, Svenja, how do we need, because sending young people for an internship is one thing. The project will then go live. But how can we prepare them? I mean, do we need to take into consideration other elements in making the selection on people who would be high level of chances to succeed, or where the output, which we said is pretty important, that we increase? Do we need to help them? Do we need to do something to prepare the internships?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, next to that, we need to prepare the company how to deal with youngsters in a non-traditional traineeship, because I think you need to spice it up a bit. But especially for the young people coming into a company, I think what we need to prepare them for is, well, taking responsibility, but also ownership. They're quite used to being told what to do, trying not to do it. I mean, that's generally the case. And in any modern company nowadays, you've got self-steering teams. You've got people that actually you need to take the responsibility to do it. So I think that's a skill we need to give the boys and girls before we put them into the business. Yeah.
Domingo, what do you do with your organization in order to be ready?
Well, I'm an entrepreneur, so and so I make clear from the beginning that everybody that comes into the company, they have also to be responsible for, actually delivering on what is asked, and if possible to over deliver. I've been used to try to go always that extra mile, and that I try to give that to all the interns. That if they want to be successful in whatever they do in life, they have to be prepared to take responsibility for what they do, and also to try to over-deliver on what is asked. If you always, do what somebody asks you, and you give that little extra, you become necessary. You become someone that it's asked to give responsibilities. And in relation to the internships, I think that it's great that they can be in big companies, and they have the responsibility of being in big companies, but I think it's also great they could go to startups, because startups are a great moment for young people to actually see that, measure the risk of starting a project, gaining motivation from other young people or not. Startups can be done by everybody, but that gain the motivation to actually also risk more in their lives, because I think that because I'm also very focused on the entrepreneurship, I think that at least every kid should have an opportunity of if they want. We shouldn't make people do what they don't want, but they should have an opportunity of trying to build their project, trying to be part of a team that is trying to build a new product. So that's what I try to give to the interns in my companies, is that empower them, and girls also. In girls, just to give you, we try very hard to bring as many women into our training as possible, because it's really a massive problem. It's not just a problem in tech, but in tech, I don't understand what happened, but it's really a massive problem. So and there, what we do is, in terms of communication, we try to communicate and put girls out there speaking. And we, when we do promotional videos, we always put women out there speaking about the success of their experience, and to try in this way to create these role models that can motivate other girls to come out.
I'll come back on the communication, and just before we go to the results of the Mentimeter, I've got one question for you. If how will we measure success? You said about communication. We need to do branding, we need to show success, we need to communicate positive news instead of always the things which do not work. But suppose we're here back in a year, not on a Friday morning then, how would we say, yes, we did it? I mean, how will we measure if that idea of a pilot is successful, yes or no?
That's a great question. I mean, I think you have to look at it through the lens of both industry and the students. So I think we need to create a compelling reason why, if you've just completed 3 years of study, you're going to want to go and do this internship for 6 months, 12 months, or whatever it is. So I think we need collectively to work on what that USP is going to be, and what net new skills or qualities or attributes one would gain, and that will drive it. And then I think the same for the employer, really. What are we going to get out of it? Are we, we're going to make this investment, which we know will get benefits from short term, but how can we then make sure we hire that talent back into our business and keep it? And that's another challenge we see as well, is we lose a lot of talent, female talent, later on in careers when women take breaks for maternity or whatever. And we need to make sure that we're getting women back into the workplace, because there's actually a lot of talent out there that probably could do with some returnership programs as well.
So we will invite you to the branding program they will make. So let's maybe go to the Mentimeter results of the first question, if possible. So for the people on the stage, 41% provide deep technical skills needed by ICT professionals, 36 medium skills, and the winner is provides practical professional experience. So if you see that, any comments from the university side?
Yeah, actually, before that, let me just spend one word on this gender issue.
Yeah.
I think that it's not that we are talking because we are fair about this issue. We won't solve the problem of lack of skills if we won't solve the problem of the gender divide. It's a matter of numbers. Unless we think that all the male will go to digital skills, we need women. So, I mean, that's two things are together. There's no way to avoid it. And we have to really address it seriously.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, it's when you see that 14%, this is my percentage, in STEM at university,
14.
Yeah, 14. It's ridiculous. I mean, that's, so we need to solve it. It's not just, I agree that, of course, being in an internship has to provide you with professional skills, with being in an environment which is professional. But if we need to leverage on this experience of a pilot, we need to learn something more. Mm-hmm. It's not just offering an opportunity to a certain X number of students, but it's trying to understand what we can do next and better. We, as academias and industries. So, I mean, we need to complement the program with pre- and post-processing. and now I do not have any concrete suggestion, but I think that we need to do that if we really want to move forward from this experience.
Sven, just a question for you. Seeing that most of the people in the room say we need to go for practical experience, aren't we missing the goal then to downsize the digital gap on digital skills if we only focus on practical experience?
In my opinion, we do. I think the practical experience is great, and there's a lot of initiatives out there who teach practical experience to a lot of kids and students. But this is a digital internship. So this is not how to use an app kind of internship. So I think we need to really up the game and really put some extreme digital skills into these people.
Yeah. So we'll come back on the communication aspect. I think first message is certainly if it gets through the project and we announce it, that we really need to watch out on how we communicate a package, to be inclusive at one side, but also to set the right expectation. And at the end of the day, to solve the problem, which is the digital skills gap, certainly. There was a second question, which students do we need to target? Sorry? Everybody. Yes. 0. Okay. You haven't responded yet. So, can you then please, while I'll jump out another question. You did? They did. The room answered the questions. So maybe you should push F4. No, F4 is. So we'll do a question while the technology will. So just one point. We've made on communication. Again, we looking into the future. Just maybe Fabio, for you, if you would be here next year. So we have done the first pilot on internship, successful because we did do a good communication. On what should the European Commission work in the meanwhile? What should be the next step on digital skills for the sector, technology or not? What should be their priority in the coming 12 months? You can use a mic.
But, maybe the first step is the right step to have a focus on technology and digital skills and so on. But there are many new areas that are rising. And this area will need more integration, more blended skills, more blended competencies. So we will find out some solution in order to have less gap between academia, university, and in companies, industry, generally speaking. Because maybe something must be changed in learning system. Because the main complaint we have, my colleagues complain a lot about university because university is too much theoretical. Mm-hmm. Now, there are many differences across Europe, of course, but I'm speaking generally. University is able to provide knowledge, sometimes skills, never competencies. The students are not able to use the skills, use the knowledge. So we must find out something to modify this situation. Second one is about the rules. We are used to got many difficulties in hiring procedures. Too much bureaucracy, too much barriers. If you wanted to help entrepreneurs to absorb more employees, to improve internships, we should have less rules or easier rules.
So your first point is maybe what the people in the room were also saying. If you have a good theoretical foundation, maybe the internship can help to put it into practice. That's maybe a little bit what I read from the slide. Mr. Wang, the government in China, do they have also initiatives in increasing the amount of digital skills for China? Do they also have some priorities which we can maybe learn from on how to improve the digital competence in China?
Yes, Ms. Chair, maybe I can introduce the overall situation of our education system to say the story, to get the story of China. In fact, we have, I think, complex systematic training systems. And first of all, just as I mentioned, from the primary school to university, we have a systematic education on digital skills. For primary students, we can provide a multimedia computer classroom to let them know what is computer. And but the most of the digital skills will be trained in the university. Every year there is about Every year there will be about 260,000 graduates majoring in computer science and technology to be okay for the marketing. And beside that,
it's a big market. It's a big market.
It's a lot
yes.
of people.
And beside that, every year we have about thousands of students with IT-related major obtain their postgraduates and doctorate degrees.
May I just ask a question, pure interest, and apologize, it was not prepared, but I'm interested to know. I mean, these are huge numbers. We can only dream of it in our situation, but we are also confronted that sometimes even people do those technical skills, and then they start to be ballerina. So are they then really executing a role in line with their studies afterwards? Do you follow that up?
I'm quite sure your question. I'm sorry, but you know, I think I could provide you more background for China, because in fact, every year we have 10 million people, young people, want to be, you know, to have entered into the employer market. So, in fact, regarding the IT sectors, the 260,000, I don't think there is enough people to supply the marketing requirement.
Okay, I think technology has been updated. So, Svenja, what do you think? You wanted to have more technology skills in your company?
Yeah.
Surprised by the results? So the majority, sorry for the panel, the majority is saying that we should not stick only to technical engineering profiles, but we should also take a master of history, or even a master in physical education, allow them to do some activities in the digital sector. Is that hopeful or?
Absolutely hopeful. I'm actually delighted because normally people try to box it in, but I think it's really good that most of the people in the room think that way. Yeah.
So this will also then make, at one hand, the opportunity more large, but it only reinforces the communication aspect, because if we still create a perception of science, technology, and engineering for those others, then they will certainly not join, I think. Just for the practical, are there any questions online? Just that I know, no questions online. So then I'll do a last question for the round, and then maybe I will open if somebody has a question in the room. Then we still have the time to use the panel also to answer that one. Last question to the panel is a question of timing. I mean, you mentioned it, I think you were at low-hanging fruits, great. But besides the internship which we have discussed, and thank you, we are progressing, let's hope it comes there. Is there any other quick win that you would just throw into the room and with what we can already start faster? Fabio, any suggestion?
I'm not Fabio, I'm Domingo.
Sorry, Domingo. I was looking, Fabio. Domingo, do you have any suggestion on what we can do next week?
Yes, of course. You know, I think that it's great. Internships are really a great opportunity to introduce new people in the market. But the reality is that we have at the moment 500,000 vacancies for ICT in Europe. 500,000. That's a low-hanging fruit. It's up there for grabs. So what can we do? You know, that's what we're trying to do with our program, which is, you know, there's also at the same time 4 million people unemployed just needs in Europe. So why don't we turn these people into ICT professionals? You know, of course, they will not be capable to go into really deep internet, but they have to start somewhere. They, you know, and our program has got 98% employability, so it means that employers want people. They need people, and also a lot of people working in the big companies, they are trained to have more expertise jobs, and they are still, because there's no people available, they are doing low skilled work still in, so they can be substituted by, you know, we are not like university. University trains generals, trains, you know, people that it's ready to take big tasks. Now we're training soldiers in the beginning, and then if they want to grow inside the company, then they have to keep on learning. So I think that there's a big opportunity there.
So both being a digital champion, in most of the countries we have also something called the National Coalition for Digital Skills. I also know that the new branded organization All Digital is in the room. thousands of training centers for digital skills. So
Yes.
as of next week, please
Tomorrow.
send them all.
Yesterday.
To that one. Yesterday. Svenja, do you have any suggestions to what we could do tomorrow, next week, to help you in your challenges?
Honestly, I think it's been a problem for a very long time.
Yep.
And I think this digital internship is just one drop in the ocean. A big drop though, but I think it's something that we need to work on for the next couple of years.
Yep.
So the only thing I can say is that companies and governments can do their own internships and try to help a little bit. But this is a program which needs to continue for years and years and years in order to fill the gaps.
Okay, great. We know what to do in the coming years. Any question out of the room? There. 2, 3, 4. Aye, and all that in 2 minutes. The first one was the gentleman at the end.
Thank you. Haluk Gökmen, Egesis, Izmir, Turkey. I would like to make a statement. I'm a computer engineer, graduated from Middle East Technical University 30 years ago, in 1987. And last year, my son was studying at Koç University, and he was looking for Erasmus programs. We have checked Polytechnic Milan, Technical University of Munich, British universities, Portugal, etc. The curriculum was more or less the same. 30 years ago, digital skills, I can still code, okay, so, and the program is still the same. Now we are talking about the digital skills of digital revolution, digitizing the industry, etc. So, my opinion, the new generation, without male and female discrimination. My daughter is also in high school. She has all, let's say, usage of digital skills, okay? Using mobile phones, tablets, computers, accessing places, finding information, etc. So we are concentrating on digital skills. That's very important because I'm making also consultancy for big corporations for the human resources. The problem is we are not employing the Generation Y people now. This is really, so that means we are going to change our system, adopt ourselves to Generation Y. That means, they have digital skills actually. We have to, digitize and then make everything ready for them, I think. So we need to also change the education system somehow. Starting from high school, etc. So this was my
For
point.
sure,
Okay?
we share certainly that vision. We'll do that in parallel, obviously. But at the other hand, the internship can also try to stimulate the gap. Was the second question? I don't know, Cheryl, short.
Okay. Yeah, I just liked Ms. Atkinson's comment about returnships, because we're talking about there is not a single woman more as an IT expert in Europe. I don't know if you know this, since 2005. Not one more woman IT expert in Europe since 2005. So where are they? There's plenty of women with work experience. You mentioned returnships.
Yep.
Why don't we talk about apprenticeship programs where we're targeting an older generation? It can be any gender, but we can actively get those women in the fold.
It's maybe an idea for a project for next year.
I proposed it. All you have to do is approve it.
I will pass the message. Another point? The lady over there, and then we will. I need to respect the next panel on this stage, so I will.
Thank you very much. I am Mario Lauristin from European Parliament, and I have been also the rapporteur on the EMPL committee, the Employment Committee, on the report on digitalized industries. And there, what we have been stressing concerning skills, really, was really the problem of those jobs. Who are not disappearing, those are disappearing jobs, but there is a lot of jobs which will be changed, the digitalized jobs. Yep. And very often they are working people who are not very young. Mm-hmm. And though there will be the hundreds of thousands, millions of people in Europe who very soon, in coming years, will need retraining in digital skills. And though my question is how this challenge is met by people who are dealing with that. And then the other question, when we discuss the future of digital Europe, then it's not only ICT, but it's connected with the different skills, also digital skills, analytical skills. And how to meet that, because I suppose that it is very important if now we look at the, for example, I am also rapporteur on e-privacy. In e-privacy we put in informed consent of a user, but how we can achieve informed consent when users are not trained about these things? So I suppose it's much more broader than only the technological knowledge.
I fully agree, but I just want to avoid that we are collectively depressed on this Friday afternoon. I will tell you why I'm fully agreeing. 65% of the jobs we know today will not exist anymore in 2020, so that's in 3 years. So my job will not exist anymore. So I have to retrain myself if I want to be still employable. That means that we need also to sensibilize the individual person who is CEO of his or her personal life to do a lifelong learning, and that's a cultural change which also takes a while, but which is critical because otherwise we will have other financial debacles like we had in a few sectors. So let me proudly thank you, the best panel of the whole 3 days. I mean, all thank you for your input. Obviously you were the best public because otherwise we would be a little bit alone here. I got great news, the coffee is ready. The weather is cool, and the next session starts at 2:50. Thank you, and have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Good afternoon to everyone for this second panel on skills for SMEs, the role of digital innovation hubs and digital learning. And we are really glad to debate about this topic today. We really think all of us, because we discussed before the panel that this topic is really an important one. My name is Victor Negrescu. I'm a member of the European Parliament. I will be the moderator for this current panel. So I come from Romania, actually the region of Transylvania. So I don't know if I was chosen to moderate because my ancestor was Dracula, but I really believe that I was chosen to moderate this panel because before I got elected in the European Parliament, I used to be a digital entrepreneur. Developed a company that was bought by a bigger one that now employs about 2,000 people in Romania in the digital sector. And I was always, in the last 3 years, engaged on issues related to digital skills. In the European Parliament, I initiated a big number of pilot projects. Basically, I convinced the Commission to finance a lot of my ideas about the digital sector. In total, 8 projects that value in total 9.3 million euros. So we are going to debate about digital skills, about SMEs, about what we can do about that. We have different perspectives, you know, of entrepreneurs, of people engaged in the business sector, of people engaged in developing e-skills. So I really think all the inputs will help us basically define the problems and at the same time identify some solutions. And this is what I hope to achieve basically today, because the objective is also to come up with some concrete examples, some concrete solutions that can be implemented afterwards. So indeed, you know, when we refer to this topic, and I have to give a short introduction, I believe that we have to be very practical. So the reason why I have my phone here, because when I speak about this topic, I like to illustrate things. So when we refer to SMEs, I see an SME as looking like a smartphone. So smart people with innovative ideas, they want to do business, they want to do more, they want to come up with their ideas and make their idea become true. But this smartphone, this SME, doesn't work all alone. You all agree? So it needs something very important, yeah, which basically needs a plug. Does it work together? Does it fit? It doesn't fit well together. But what is this plug? For me, at least, and hopefully for the other speakers as well, the plug is composed of the human resources, of the brain that you are capable of attracting in the SME, in making the SME work. But it's not only about having those people, it's not only about human resources, but it's also about making the connection. So therefore, you need something that, of course, everyone needs in order to make the smartphone work. You need a cable. And actually, this is the most difficult thing to do, is to identify this cable. What is this link that we need between the human resources that SMEs need in order to have a better European digital SMEs market and actually to manage to do more? Of course, you also need energy. And energy comes from ideas, and hopefully, and I'm sure of that, the speakers of today are going to come up with those ideas that will enable us to have identify the plug, identify the cable, and maybe generate some interesting ideas for SMEs. What you also have to know is that, together with the colleagues from the European Commission that organized this digital assembly, we ask you to come up with your ideas, your comments, and we address questions on menti.com. You'll have it on the screen immediately. So we invite you to go on this website, introduce the code that is going to appear very soon now, and answer to the question that is addressed to you. So how do best prepare people working in SMEs for the digital transformation? You have 4 different choices: in-house training, back-to-school training, online self-training, a mix of present-based and online self-learning. So you have 4 solutions that are given to you. Of course, maybe we will identify more today. This is the goal of a panel, but go on menti.com, introduce the code 742628, and please give us your points of view. It's important for us to hear you out. And of course, all of this information, all of your answers are going to be used by us in the result of this conference and of this assembly. So I told you earlier that we have interesting speakers. Indeed, we have interesting speakers. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce each of them before giving each of them the floor for a brief introduction on the topic, a brief comment on the issue itself. So we have Angel Giuliano, entrepreneur from Malta. She is, of course, going to present the perspective of SMEs and of being an entrepreneur currently in Europe. Jose Manuel Leseta, Director General from Red.es from Spain. Of course, they do a lot of work in promoting digital transformation, and of course, their reflection is going to refer to that. Kiyoshi Mori, Director General for International Cyber Economy Policy, METI Japan. So he came all the way from Japan to give us some interesting points of view, and I think this perspective is also really important for us, because in Europe we tend to stay only between us, so I think we have to open up a little bit more. So a great idea of the Commission to have him as a guest. We have Remco de Bruijn, Senior Advisor at the Netherlands Chamber of Commerce. I told you earlier that the Chamber of Commerce are doing great things when referring to SMEs, and the Dutch Chamber of Commerce is doing a great work, and Mr. de Bruijn is going to speak to us about that. And first and not least, Ahmad Issa from Future Work Lab, from the Fraunhofer Institute for Manufacturing Engineering and Automation from Germany. I can tell you as a fact, as a member of the European Parliament, that we receive so many emails from them and so many invitations that it's clearly that they are doing a great job. So I really hope to hear all about that. So I told you that I'm going to introduce the speakers, but it's up to them to take the floor. So I will leave the floor for the speaker to give us a first initial point of view on this topic of SMEs, skills, and digital transformation.
Thank you very much. And first and foremost, thank you for having me here. So I'm Angel. I'm an entrepreneur from Malta. I have been an entrepreneur for 20 years. And all of my businesses have been related to ICT. Normally they are in ICT for social reasons, whether it's education, health, or culture. And today I wanted to start with a little bit of a provocation almost. I think we all agree that the supply of digital skills in Europe is low, but the demand is extremely high. And therefore what happens, normal economic movement, if there is not enough supply, the price is going to go up. And as an entrepreneur, basically, I am faced whenever I want to employ people of a choice. I'm faced with the choice of whether to employ a highly expensive European that might or might not have the right digital skills, because previously, and in the previous panel, we had, and I also agree, that sometimes our educational system is really not preparing our kids properly for the world of work. Or, so my option one, European young man or girl that might or might not be skilled but expensive. Option two, maybe someone from the East, someone from India, from Pakistan, at 1/3 of the price, with a much better attitude. I mean, really, we are losing the boat, in my opinion, because if people think that SMEs are a charity and they will keep employing highly expensive kids from the EU just for the love of Europe, you're wrong. We are there in order to survive as well as SMEs because we want to grow the economy. But if we don't find the right supply from Europe, we're going to go somewhere else. And today it is so easy in the digital world, and I know that some of the panelists are not going to agree with me because we've been speaking about this, but it is so easy to find talent from far away to really subcontract remotely without the need to physically even bring them here, because we can all telework thanks to technology. And therefore, this is the situation that we are faced. So if we want our SMEs to stay competitive, then we need to give them the right digital skills at the right price. And I think I'm going to stop there for now.
Yeah, interesting first perspective coming from Angela. And of course, we opened the issue of the existence or non-existence of a European ecosystem that will facilitate access to the best trained people at a fair price, if we can call it like that. So I think, Jose, you have an interesting point of view regarding this topic. I know you recently launched a new digital content hub, the biggest one. So tell us about that and tell us about the reflection of Angela.
I'm very impressed with our chairman because I think you're writing to the right point about people and places or spaces or ecosystems. This is indeed what we try to do. Our agency, Red.es, is not a new agency, it's 15 years old, but we are still working on that. And obviously, I'd like to share with you what might be of interest to the debate. These are probably 3 topics, maybe another one. First topic is the model of our agency, because we see other countries either having agencies, shaping ecosystems or trying to shape ecosystems, and others are going to be already have agencies like this, so maybe the first point of interest might be this model. The second is looking backwards, what we have done. Third, looking forward, what we intend doing with the new strategy we have, focusing precisely on the economics of all the digital economy and society, and maybe a plea for next year, okay, for the digital assembly, and I already shared this with you. So our agency is called Red.es. It reports to the Ministry of the Digital Agenda, Energy and Tourism, and the division of labor is very simple. On the one hand, you have policy making, if you want the agendas, the digital agendas. On the other side is more the implementation of this. So again, it's not new if you think about innovation. In innovation, in the 90s, there were in Europe 6 innovation agencies. Today, there are 24. Because somehow you have to come from the discourse down to implementation. And there you have to be working on the ground. So I think the Commission is certainly orchestrating and, catalyzing, but I think you need alliances or coalitions, right? You call this coalition rightly, because you need indeed people working on the ground. And I think this is the helping hand we are offering here, but hopefully we can amplify next year. Looking backwards, what have we done with these ecosystems? Coming back to your question, basically 3 things. If we all agree that digital is about, on the one hand, spaces, technology, but most importantly, people. We have worked on these 3 fronts. On the spaces, we have set up, if we think about digital innovation hubs, some kind of digital innovation hubs, we call these demonstration centers. These are 14 centers, and most recently, as you pointed out, you're very well informed, we have launched a particularly important operation in Malaga with an investment of 10 million euros. So this is what concerns the spaces or places where innovation happens or digital transformation catalyzes. Concerning technologies, we also help companies to basically apply ICT in their business, whether they are new companies or existing companies. This is certainly something we are doing. And by the way, for maybe the interest here of the audience, we use structural funds for that. It is possible to use this, and we are investing a significant amount, 65 million euros of structural funds for this purpose. Thirdly, when it comes to people, again, digital is about people, okay? Let's not get into the technologies. It's about the talent. There, we are most recently having started an operation also with European social funds to invest 50 million euros in getting the right talent. And by the way, it's a pipeline. We are not focusing on one particular age, or we are focusing on the one stream up to the other stream, from early careers down to entrepreneurs, learning on the job. These are all important. So this is looking backward. But I think we all agree in this assembly, the best is about to come, right? And this is what we also believe in our agency. We have set up, and the digital champion of Spain is with us. We have set up a new course for the coming years. It's a strategy, right? You cannot program innovation, but I think you can help innovation happen. And this is what we intend to be doing. Why? Because Spain in public services in general is very well advanced. For instance, open data, we are #1 in Europe. In digital, smart cities, we are all very well positioned. E-health, we are above the average. But when it comes to the digital economy and society, we're still struggling. So we need to really rebalance our investments there. And this is what our strategic plan is saying. Basically, we will invest half of our budget into business and people. So this is roughly 200 million in the coming 3 years. Okay? So we talk indeed, as you, Chairman, said, about ecosystems. What does this strategy mean for ecosystems? Basically, a clear message, we need to go holistic, because there are a lot of anecdotes, there are a lot of good attempts and so on, but an entrepreneur would agree that you have to experiment. At some point, you have to scale up, and this is also true for policy. So it's good to experiment, it's good to have local things here, there, they're all different, they're all beautiful. At some point you have to codify your intervention model if you want to really have an impact. And this is what we are trying to do with our strategy. We call this a digital house. Why? Because we want, as you pointed out, politicians also to understand. And by the way, it's also about three things you already pointed out. On the one hand, why a house? Because the foundations are the people. So our 50 million euros in the structural funds, the social fund, would be there for building up a pipeline, okay? Then we get to the first level of our house, which is about the firms. You know, the economic agent by nature. And there we have a number of initiatives for the existing business and a number of activities for the new business. So like things like vouchers, for instance, so that companies would decide what they want. Again, we don't think that innovation or digital transformation can be programmed. So this is all very organic. It's, our house is built up from, the bottom, okay? And then from the first level, we get to the most exciting one, which is your wire, the connections, the ecosystem. Because the ecosystems are not collection of boxes. They are the arrows. They are the values in people's behaviors. They are the links between the institutions. So there we are also be investing in our digital house. But the key message again is that we have to go from, let's say, fragmented all goodwill attempts to a holistic approach. It would be fantastic, to know who are the companies that would be striving in the future, would be driving. But we don't know this. Some are in the traditional sectors, some are in the new sectors, some are old, some are new. The only response to that, as you pointed out, is the ecosystem. How to overcome barriers to growth concerning access to talent, access to market, access to knowledge. This is what we intend to operationalize in our attempt for the future. Final word, Chairman, before I conclude. There is some confusion we were discussing before about SMEs and startups, okay? We know new firms most of new firms start small, but most small firms are old. So maybe a discussion for next year might be this one, about the age versus the size, because it's not the same. Okay, but again, the best is should be coming. I hope that organizers, and I was talking to the Director General, next year, obviously this year is more about the roaming, the big telcos, the incumbents, okay? So maybe next year we have a bit of a rebalance in the program, but this is a suggestion to get more, let's say, the real change agents on the stage. And this is not a parallel session, but it really may be, a big discussion at the beginning of the assembly. This is my appeal and final word.
Yeah, very, very interesting. And indeed, I have to tell you that at least in the European Parliament, we are discussing more and more about SMEs, their role, and also the need of a holistic approach. But it's hard to define what is holistic and what is not. Sometimes, even if the digital sector offers a lot of opportunities, people tend to be to refer only to their own countries or only regions and forget about the opportunities offered at the global level by the digital evolution. And this is why I think your input, coming from Japan, is an essential one. Maybe you have an idea about how we can engage more, how Europe can engage more with Japan, how entrepreneurs from Europe could engage more entrepreneurs from Japan, how we can exchange different points of view, because I'm also sure that you are confronted with the same issues, like you mentioned earlier, the issue of big salaries. I think it's an issue also that Japan is facing when it comes to highly digital skilled people. So give us your point of view on this topic.
Yeah, thank you very much. My name is Kiyoshimori, and I am a governmental official. And I was heavily involved with the SME policies, including the economic cooperation with Japanese SMEs in Asia and Africa. And SMEs in Japan play a great important role for the Japanese economy, but recently they worry about how to adapt to the digital transformation, and there are so many requests for advices for the public sectors. And so I would like to introduce a couple of advices we public sectors are making to Japanese SMEs. So number one is start from what you can do. Okay, vendor companies or big companies would like to sell tailor-made and expensive applications to the SMEs. Yeah, but normally speaking, diffused version of applications will do to certain extent. For example, if SMEs attach old and obsolete 3G smartphones to the actuated parts or actuated machines of the factories after installing some special devices to the obsolete smartphones. Yes, these smartphones can tell the working conditions of the parts or machines of the factory. So SMEs can understand the rough image of the working conditions of the factory itself. But most of the SMEs in Japanese do not know such kind of fact. So we are advising them to start what they can do. This is number one. And number two, our advice is that forget about whether ICT is related or not. Concentrate on creating an indispensable modular unit. Okay, in the era of IoT, so modularization is very, very important. So if all of the process of the components of manufacturing or services are digitalized, okay, each of the components of the modular unit will be able to be digitalized at the same time. So for a SMEs or a group of SMEs to make such kind of independent, indispensable modular unit, it is very, very important. So we are advising them, forget about ICT. So let's concentrate on creating such kind of indispensable modular unit, whether it is related to manufacturing or it is related to services. Yes.
Yeah, the complexity of basically of the digital evolution, of the digital transformation, the need to understand what are the opportunities, basically. And I think your perspective is an interesting one that we hear rarely in Europe. In the same time, indeed, we refer a lot to SMEs as being customers of the new digital tools that appear on the market. And in this sense, the next speaker has studied, or they studied in the Chamber of Commerce, the Netherlands Chamber of Commerce, a little bit more the issue of digital transformation with regards to SMEs. And I think your input is an essential one to understand how SMEs perceive the digital transformation. This is also an important perspective that we have to hear today. Please.
Okay, thank you. Remco de Bruin from the Netherlands Chamber of Commerce. It's a modern digital-first public service provider. So we advise entrepreneurs and provide them information on starting up, scaling up, internationalization, and now especially, which is very prominent, digitalization. Why we went to an extensive digitalization process ourselves, and that also helped us to advise our SMEs. So we use the digitalization and new technology to deliver services that are smarter, more accessible, easier and faster as a public organization. So we experiment with MOOCs, hackathons, webinars, data-driven apps, combining everything. We have over 1 million customer contacts a year, and all this data helps us, again, this is let's say, improve our services and fine-tune them to the market. We have a website currently with 25 million visits and mainly work now via digital channels, but of course still we have other channels as well. It's what the entrepreneurs want, how he wants to get the information. The Chamber is involved in a program that is called Smart Industry. It was set up 2 years ago by 5 founding members, the Ministry of Economic Affairs, FME, this Dutch technology sector, the Chamber of Commerce, ICT Netherlands, and the Dutch Employers Organization, the VNO. And it's basically, it's a difficult term, smart industry, something. What does it mean? It's basically digitalization of industry. So using digitalization and modern technology, such as 3D printing, robotics, Internet of Things, for smart processes, products and services. And everything is interconnected. People, machines, they together. That is basically smart industry. So simply put, digitalization of industry, as it is called as an easier term on the European level. So we wanted to know, and we have a business panel of 4,000 entrepreneurs of the Chamber of Commerce, and we wanted to know how are entrepreneurs perceiving this digital revolution? What are their opportunities they're seeing? What are their threats? What are they missing? So we got about 2,000 responses, and we do this survey every year. And basically, 30% of entrepreneurs see the possibilities of smart industry, the opportunities. And then you have another 23%, they see the opportunity, but also the threat for it, for example, for the workforce or other. So this is together, you could say, roughly about 50% that sees the opportunities, but there are still a very large percentage of 50% that doesn't really see the opportunities of the new technology. And the main opportunities they saw, which scored the highest of the ones that saw these opportunities, are their using customer feedback. So all the data they get back from their customers for product improvement and new innovations. And also, which was a bit surprising, but they see it as an opportunity to stimulate employees on lifelong learning, to invest in skills, because technology, we tend to think that people are afraid of technology that are older, but some think it is an opportunity because tech can be fun. And if you invest in those skills, you can become, you invest in yourself and in the company. So that was the second opportunity they saw in terms of, and also a few challenges. Only 13% of the SMEs that we interviewed are really putting the opportunities into practice. So the conversion to business models, to business revenues is a very small percentage, 12-13%. So there is where, let's say, business organizations, policymakers have to help, I think, in making this conversion. How can you practically convert these opportunities into business for processes, new products and services? They have problems with their first steps in implementation. Also, the application possibilities are overwhelming, so where to start? This was also one of the highest scoring bottlenecks that they saw. And for the rest, it's also money, because if you want to work with new digital technology, it can be very expensive in some cases, and you need an investment budget, while it's sometimes very difficult to already calculate your returns later. What will it exactly bring back to my company? So that's as far as the research goes, and then we asked them, what do you need of us, SMEs, in the Netherlands, which I don't think will be very difficult or different, in the rest of Europe. That is that they want information and tools to discover these opportunities. So this is especially for this group that doesn't know what opportunities there are of digital technology. And then there's also this group that wants more in-depth information and tools about digitalization. And so it's, a lot is in basically improving their digital skills via online tools. With regard to smart industry, I'll focus just on one part of it. It's a very big program that started 2 years ago with the partners that I said, and has 3 action lines. Capitalizing on existing knowledge. This is what the Chamber is most active in. Awareness creation and stimulation of converting opportunities into business. Then you have the acceleration in field labs. There are 29 field labs in the Netherlands at the moment under the smart industry umbrella. Field labs are smart dairy farming 3.0, ultra-personalized products and services, multi-material 3D printing, and RoboHouse, which is about robotics. These field labs are practice environments where companies and knowledge institutions develop, test and deploy these new smart industry solutions, which is of course what a lab does. And there's a third action line that is strengthening the foundation. That's basically the underlying technology and the research agenda. To focus on how do we, what we discovered from our research, how do we help our SMEs? We help them with very, very practical tools. So we set up MOOCs with partners and on big data, but also we did a smart industry bootcamp with 5 modules. And we work a lot with entrepreneurs that have already grasped the opportunities and speak about how they did it so others learn. So that is what we do, and also create step-by-step plans, opportunity compasses. For example, in which business are you? What do you want to do? Smart products and services. Then what strategy? How can you do that? So really the how-to. We have a publication on this conversion of opportunities into concrete business, and it was downloaded already 15,000 times. So that is quite a lot if you look at the target group. And I think that it is in these practical tools via the digital and mobile channels adapted to the target group. How this can be improved, and also we have a hotline, for example, where 10 specialized advisors where they can call if they have questions about, okay, I want to use digital technology, or I have a question, and they are helped with their business models and these kind of things. So very practical tools that we have as a Chamber of Commerce, and it's looking very promising so far, the first 2 years that we're busy now with all these partners. And that, I think, is for my introduction for now. Thank you.
Yeah, very interesting, and you touch upon a very important topic, the issue of information, you know. Sometimes, you know, SMEs do not identify the opportunities because they do not have the information, and we have to find new ways of feeding them with the information that they need. And of course, we need to ask them before what information they need before feeding them with that opportunities. And of course, you know, there are different structures that are working on this issue. You know, some are working on different aspects. You know, the next speaker from the Future Work Lab, Mr. Issa, works a lot on helping SMEs upskill their workers, play their role in this part, because this is also an important dimension. But before giving you the floor, I have to tell everyone that after that we are going to continue with the debate, but you are invited to take the floor in any moment with questions or interventions. And also do not hesitate to tweet. You know, you saw the Twitter wall earlier here on the screen. Also tweet, and come up with your interesting ideas. So, Mr. Issa, we're speaking about upskilling people, learning or teaching SMEs. Give us your points of view. I know you are doing a lot on this issue.
Is this working? Yeah.
Yeah.
What we have been saying, especially from the production side, so my background is from the manufacturing side, that the digital transformation has already changed a lot what we do from the production and manufacturing side, not just only from the smart products point of view and creating smart products. And that has created a lot of challenges from the workers' point of view, but also has created a lot of opportunities. However, we as humans are enemies of what we don't know. And most of the workers are actually resisting this change. They are protesting against the digitization of the workplace. And what we're trying to do in the Future Work Lab is to show them that actually the digitalization of the processes is actually for the benefits of the workers, not the other way around. So it's an opportunity for them. So for instance, when we work with, we show them, for instance, some of the demonstrators, real life demonstrators, how the technology can help them, assist them in what they do. So you turn the workers from actually the main labor in your company to a more supervisory role of the machines. So the routine stuff that you do can be turned into or automated by machines, but then you can do the more highly added value stuff in your company. But in order to do this, you need to build the skills of the workers. You need to change how they look at their daily jobs. And what we're trying to do, we have developed a 3-level structure in our Future Work Lab. The first one is called the Demo Center. So and this Future Work Lab is a project in collaboration with the Workers' Union. And because we believe that it's very important to involve them during the development of the new technology to understand actually their needs and how the technology might affect their work. So the demo center is about showing them the possibilities, what technology actually can help in the production shop floor side. And then we engage them in what we call the second level. We call it the learning center. So we help the workers obtain new skills, not just digital skills, but also business skills. Because we believe it's not enough to have the digital technological side, because the work now, the focal point of the work now has three elements. It has a social side, it has a technological side, and it has a business side. So we believe that these three together the skills in these three areas will define how the future of the work will be. And in Germany, we call it Work 4.0. We are very fond of 4.0 in Germany. So this is the second part, which is the learning part. It can be through augmented reality, virtual reality, or MOOCs to help the workers gain new skills. But also we need what we call the idea center, where as the previous panel chair was saying, 60% of the future jobs, we don't know what they will be. Really, we don't know. We have no idea. And that is really scary. But at the same time, it's a great opportunity. It gives us the freedom to look for, okay, what the skills we need, how we need to build them, and let's involve the workers, let's involve SMEs, let's involve bigger companies, let's involve the government, involve everybody, all the stakeholders together in order to build that strategy, build that vision for the future. But we also think that the reskilling and upskilling, going back to your question, is an industry-specific and regional-specific challenge. Yes, you need the national or European levels as a strategy point of view, but when you go into the real companies, you will see that the skills needs are different from one industry to the other, and from one region to the other, because some of the regions are more innovative, some of the regions are lagging behind from the digital skills point of view, but from the also other skills point of view. And that's why, going back to the idea of reskilling and upskilling, we see that the main challenge that face small businesses is actually a dilemma. Should I train my workers or not? If I don't, I will lose. I won't be competitive enough. But if I do, bigger companies will come and steal them because we don't have enough skills. And if we don't solve this dilemma for SMEs, we will be in big trouble. But to be on the positive side, I believe that initiatives such as Future Work Lab will encourage more and more workers to obtain those skills, encourage them to be involved in creating opportunities for their companies, and I think being more open to digitization of the workplace. And I think if we don't do this, we will be losing to other continents and other countries. We need our workers to be open to the digitization of the workplace because it's in their best interest. That's the message that we need to deliver to them. And we see a big difference after they come and see what's possible. And of course, the feedback that they give us is very important. So for instance, in assistant systems development, for the workers, we have changed a lot of technology and demonstrators based on the feedback that we got from the workers. So even from the technological side and the research side, it advanced because we involved stakeholders, we involved the workers from the beginning. And this is the message that I wanted to share with you today.
Yeah, very, very important message, you know. informing people, educating people, not leaving anyone behind, because it's also a problem. You know, we have digital transformation is a fact. You know, I would not call it a revolution, but there is a transformation, and we need to inform people about what this transformation means and how they could take advantage of the opportunities, in the same time update a little bit their skills. So we have to speak openly about that. Sometimes this happens only at the level, at least for me, it seems only at a certain level of elites, and we forget to involve everyone. But you know, of course, you are open to intervene. But Angela, you had some questions at the beginning, you know, about your problems. Did you manage to find any answers in the intervention that were, that you heard before? Because again, what will enable you to you know, have the workers that you want, invest in their skills and so forth? Please.
Well, I can sort of tell you how I'm trying to solve it myself. So I normally employ for attitude and train for skills. So I think one of the things which we have not mentioned yet is something which is lacking also in our educational systems today, is teaching kids values. And I don't want to go down the religion path. I want to go down the human values path. You know, responsibility, loyalty, you know, all these things we are forgetting. Kids today are being bombarded with you know, being competitive, always, you know, being the first. And they really, very rarely are being taught how to really be a crucial part of society. So what do I do is, basically, in this sense, I really agreed with Ahmed. I employ people, and it takes me about 3 months to employ a person. So I really go through a lot of people, a lot of questions, a lot of situations with them. I really invest money in finding the right attitude. Once I find that, then I train for skills. Of course, I will try to find a propensity for some skills, yes. But I have trained people over 40 to become technical, and it's working out really well. And, you know, I have trained women returners, anyone from any sort of walk of life, over 20 years. I mean, one of my businesses is a training center, so that's it's kind of easy for me. Not maybe all SMEs have the luxury of having a training center in digital skills. So in my case, yes, I wanted to be provocative when I started, because I really think that Europe in general has to face this issue. But I really think that if we sit down all together and we see what skills are needed, what is the population out there in Europe that we can, inverted commas, use. And of course, I will play the women's card, and of course say that there's not enough women even in the labor force, let alone in the IT labor force. But even in general, okay, so whether you're male or female, for me it makes absolutely no difference. As long as you can produce with the right values, you know, as a great worker, in a win-win situation. Because, you know, unless the worker feels engaged, of course they will leave at the next one that offers them 500 euros more a month. Of course they will do that. You will lose them. So the dilemma is very real. And I normally try to solve it this way, by trying to find the right values in the people I employ.
Yeah, indeed, it's, you are mentioning the idea basically of organizational culture, the idea maybe also to some extent of entrepreneurial culture, entrepreneurial education, all of these issues that are important, and also a more individualized approach. And I was wondering, in your study, in the study that you conducted, if you saw to some extent those issues appeared always also coming from SMEs. Do you think that SMEs identify themselves as having a role in this process of digital transformation? Do they see themselves to be capable of doing more in this direction? What did you identify more in your study on this topic?
Yeah, for example, the biggest problems they had were in this conversion of these business opportunities, and the most people that replied to the study were the SME owners. I think you get very different answers if you ask it to the workforce themselves. And there, I think you will get two groups. You will get a group that is a bit afraid of what will happen, and that also was shown in the research. They push it back. They don't want digitalization. And you have a group that sees it more as an opportunity, and they think, well, it can be useful for my work here, help my company, and if not, I go somewhere else. So that is this group. But in the end, the only thing what can is that you train such a large group of people that eventually the skill level will be raised to a certain level. For example, well, I don't know if this has been discussed in other sessions. North and West Europe is 70% of the people that have the basic and advanced digital skills. In Southeastern Europe, it's 40% on average. So there's also need to be a transfer between different regions. The research results, I was totally forbidden to use slides on this occasion, so I didn't do that, with some punishments, so I was really careful. But I will put them on the website later on, so you can see the research results. But there is a big difference between different sectors. The size of SMEs and also the qualities that SMEs have already. If they are very, let's say, already work a lot with interconnecting machines, devices, then it's much easier for them to capitalize on it if they're at the beginning. So it's very interesting to look at these differences in the sector. So I completely agree that you have to have a different approach on the sectors and also in the method of learning. In terms of people that like to, because that's the favorite, I think, to really use technology, that is the easiest, but also, for example, more for academics, they need a different way of teaching than the others. And then who is going to teach the teachers? That's also an important point.
It's also an important topic. So we have Mr. Issa and Mr. Mori afterwards.
Thank you very much. Yeah. So can I talk about two things? So on-the-job training and school education. So for the on-the-job trainings, industrial hub is very, very important. So please come to Akihabara of Tokyo or Shenzhen of China. So there are so many entrepreneurs there. And why? The reason is that there are accumulation of parts suppliers and design engineers. So SMEs or entrepreneurs can make prototypes or test goods very, very cheaply and very, very quickly. So in these situations, training can be done on the job basis. So for the job training on the job basis, hub is very, very important. And for the school education, I don't know it is applicable, whether or not it is applicable to your countries. In Japan, high school students with high scores in mathematics and sciences tend to become a medical doctor. So we would like to encourage more high school students to go to the engineering courses. So we would like to start the programming courses from the high school, not high school, middle schools. And so those kind of endeavor is very, very important.
Yes, this is indeed important. You wanted to intervene on this topic as well?
Just one point regarding the digital divide. I think in Europe we have what we call a multifaceted digital divide from the skills point of view. We have a country level, as was mentioned here. But we have also a regional level. So some of the regions within the same country are more innovative and have more digital skills than other regions. But also we have companies level size digital divide, where you have bigger companies, they were able to invest more in the digital, acquiring digital skills, while the SMEs are struggling with that. So this multifaceted digital divide within Europe is a big problem that we need to tackle in order to have a more, to achieve the benefits of the digital single market, actually.
Yeah, so we differ a lot, you know, on the issue, on the problem, but we have to go back to the solutions. And, you know, we all heard about the way you are using basically European funds, and I think maybe the solution is also at that level to some extent, because I have to tell you, you know, in Romania, it's my country, you know, it's we have a lot of digital entrepreneurs. We are doing well on a lot of things, but we have difficulties in using European funds. And I often hear this idea that we don't know how to use European funds to tackle the issue of digital transformation. And I was wondering if this is a solution, and maybe you can come up with some suggestions also for policymakers to adjust maybe those funds.
First of all, a compliment maybe to what you were saying. I fully agree to that, and that's why there's a lot of room for the Commission to really help and map a bit the landscape, because digital is changing everything, so everything has to be changed. And for that, when you're in a terrain that you don't know, you need a compass because there's no map. For instance, issues like publishing, digital index for regions and not for states, would help a lot. Because then regions would look and find where they have to improve. Even if you look at Spain, our aggregate level is wise. We are above the average, for instance, but still we know that even in the public sectors, you need to have, you really have to focus. So even in countries like us, in Germany is the same, you have a level of decentralization. You need to provide intelligence to the decision makers in regions. So governance, management is important, but governance is even more important. So this is partly, hopefully, answering your question. Now coming to what you said about structural funds, indeed, I mean, there are a lot of scope, but this is what I tried to say at the beginning. Roaming, telcos, and so on is about regulation, parliament. You're a member of parliament. This comes, top down. You really have, you want energy on the ground, there is a lot of things happening. But we need a bit of a structuring, a mapping of the landscape and so on. And that's why I believe there is scope for, not a coalition of the willingness for the skills, but also for entrepreneurs. Take Spain, we have this crisis. Who was talking about entrepreneurship 5 years ago? Nobody. There is a Cambrian moment now. So we need to embrace this and open up our public institutions to really know what this means in terms of aligning our policy portfolio. So structural funds, for instance, in the past were used to build up highways. Later we build up, we use these funds for R&D. Now we need to build up, competence and business models and all that. So, and this again can be done. We are doing that with our structural funds. But you also made a point. I mean, 200 million, for instance, if you take our case, it may sound a big figure, but it's not a very, you have to be smart into setting up the right incentives. And this is what I try to do. For this, you need to open up even your policy portfolio to the stakeholders. So you need to talk to the people and, and ask what they find of interest, in your ideas. So in other words, policy making has to be entrepreneurial. What we often preach and teach to the entrepreneurs, something that politicians also and policymakers should also do. This is what we try to, in an agency that is 15 years old, but where we believe, again, the best is to come, we are opening up. We are listening to our stakeholders. We are setting up policy instruments that are hopefully aligned to their expectations. Because again, we will not fund each and every one. So you have to basically aim at catalyzing. And for this you have to be smart and experiment and and revisit lean startup. Lean startup for policy making. But yes, I mean, I would be very willing. I said already, if this is a plenary next year. I would be very willing to join forces because I believe the Commission, if one needs, and this is the final message, if the Commission would like to do something, to mobilize companies, people across the board, you need, people working on the ground like Fraunhofer, like digital agencies. I mean, this will not happen from the Parliament. I mean, sorry to be that blunt, but obviously the Parliament will shake the system. But if you want energy on the ground, I think the Commission has to really get in touch with the regions, with the nations, and and maybe we can then accelerate a little bit more to please those that are really making things happen.
Yeah, I have to disappoint you. Some things really happen in the European Parliament, and I have to defend my institution because we discuss a lot about innovation. Actually, we have a summit on innovation. We tend to come with ideas that come from our constituencies because we meet you in our constituencies, so we transmit those ideas. So the guys that we need to shake up are the guys from the Commission. Sorry, because they come up with an initial idea, we can only amend it. But the idea is to work together. And again, we need to be sincere. We refer to what we talked about: an ecosystem, not only for the market, but an ecosystem involving also policymakers in establishing the best solutions. I didn't see any questions raised from your side, so just because we are running out of time, in one phrase, one policy recommendation for tackling the issue of skills and SMEs in one phrase. So,
tax breaks.
Tax breaks.
Policy portfolio.
Policy portfolio.
Okay, so in Japan, the ladies entrepreneurs are increasing rapidly because they do not stick to lifetime employment system. The solution will be in that direction.
Yeah, very interesting.
Tweak Erasmus for young entrepreneurs and for digital skills. Make the exchanges about that between SMEs and in Europe.
Very concrete.
I think one important policy might be linking all digital hubs across Europe, because they are regional ones, linking them up together and turning them into skills center or reskilling centers, because they have the links on the ground with their companies, with the competence centers, but also if you have this meta level between all the digital hubs across Europe, you can transfer the skills from one region to the other in Europe.
Yeah, very interesting points of view on this last idea. I have to tell you that there is a pilot project actually currently implemented by the Commission on this topic. Mm-hmm. They have to deliver on it. I initiated this idea, so the Commission has to implement it, and it speaks about the idea of creating a link. So some things are happening, and I have to tell you that even the people that got involved in these panels are people that are really involved in doing more. Mm-hmm. It's not always easy. We have to convince a lot of people, but we also have to praise them for what they do, and I have to mention all of that. So. Of course, we cannot finish these panels without a conclusion. So we have a conclusion on the two panels, and I invite Mario Marinello from the European Commission to give us a brief conclusion on both of the two panels.
I'm glad that somebody from the Commission will have the last word, so that I can say that the Commission is better than the panel.
We need to refer to the question. Sorry to interrupt you. Okay. To see the result of the question of this panel. Okay. So it seems everyone wants a mix of presence-based and online self-learnings. So the mix is the solution that everyone identified. So sorry, Mario.
So thank you very much to everybody, to you, also to the speakers of the other panel. I think it was a very lively, inspiring, and hands-on discussion. I really enjoyed it. So I'm aware that I'm the last obstacle between you and the beach. So definitely I will try to be very short, brief. And I should say also that I'm not a labor expert. So I think I learned a lot in these 2 hours, and I'm very happy to share with you the thoughts that came to my mind. So first of all, what is the context here? I think we can refer to the usual mantra. We are facing radical changes. What we call, with the fancy Nona, disruption, in fact, is a major change of our way of thinking, our way of working, our way of doing business, to live, to be together. So digital is the vehicle of the change, and we now have the opportunity to equip our workers, our companies, our citizens with the tools to drive that change, that vehicle, and to steer it where we want, where we can get the most out of it. Or we can miss that ride and actually be run over from it, if you allow me this metaphor. So one spectacular way of missing that ride is actually to fall into this polarization trap in which you have those who are optimistic about digital and they say, okay, digital will save humanity and there are no issues, and if there are some issues, they will heal by themselves. And the other, the pessimists, that they say, well, digital is a catastrophe and they will wipe off humanity from the planet. Now, this type of discussion actually can easily end up in theorizing what is the optimal level of disruption. And this I think it's a misleading question, which is not bringing anywhere. You cannot really change just a bit. So instead, to overcome that polarization trap, what we need to do is to acknowledge digital is great, but also to acknowledge that there are issues that we need to tackle, and public policies is coming to bring concrete solutions to them. Okay. So I think the two panels of today actually were exactly responding to the call. They escaped the polarization trap, and they focused on bringing up concrete solutions to emerging issues. And I thought this was really, really good. So by and large, our labor force is unable to supply what is needed to get our industries to go digital. There is a widening gap between the demand of digital skilled employees and the availability of those skills in the labor market. At the same time, youth unemployment is still at extraordinarily high levels, and many older workers face the concrete threat of automation, right? They are unable to think about themselves as ever doing something different, as you rightfully, I think, pointed out before, different from what they have been doing until now. So being that hammering down a bolt or picking up the phone to make a call. So these are the concrete questions that we address today. How do we fill vacancies in the digital space? How do we train or retrain our workforce? How can we help companies, in particular smaller ones, to reskill and upskill their employees? I think panel 1 and panel 2 were indeed addressing those questions from two different but complementary angles. So the first one looked at the young generations. What can we do to help them to get ready for their appointment to the digital economy? While the second one looked at the older generation in a way, I mean, because talking about small and medium companies, the backbone of our economy, we essentially talk about the workforce which is already there and how we can, help them to be updated somehow to the challenges that we are facing now. So concerning panel 1, I think there is a consensus about the importance of providing students with digital skills. That's clear. We had very concrete examples of successful programs that were presented. I don't know, it came to mind this code boot camps by Domingos. I mean, I think it was very interesting. Also, the other projects presented by Sarah were also extremely interesting. I think there is a general support towards the internship project that the Commission is intending to launch, which I think is very nice. I also believe it's very important. And also, I mean, I remember from the survey that we did, there is a kind of a general consensus that we should target all type of faculties, all type of disciplines, and we should educate our young generations with in a versatile way. I mean, it's not just about coding; it's about empowering all digital skills somehow. Of course, there is a lot to do. I mean, the success of this program is dependent on many other issues. We should, we should have more feedback for the universities. They should understand better what is needed. In fact, there should be a collective effort to stimulate women participation, which is still low, and we need also metrics of success from both from the point of view of industry and from the point of view of the students. Panel 2, I mean, the importance of small, medium enterprises, clearly. I mean, that was the focus. The importance of building the right ecosystem. I think this came very clearly from all of you. So the innovation hubs are clearly crucial, but you can call them in many ways. And also there, I mean, they were concrete plans. That's what I found really enriching in a way of the discussion. So the Red S, the smart industry, the future lab. All this is exactly what we need. Also, the experience in Japan is, I mean, really, that is exactly where we have to go in order to, move on. I would say. Of course, there are difficulties for small medium enterprises, which are more vulnerable in this environment. That's clear. They fail to scale up because they lack access to financing, for example. Of course, they are affected more by fixed cost. They are more affected by the risk of losing talents after they have trained them. You pointed that. I think that's also very important. And again, we need to have public policy to address those potential market failures. I mean, I think this is clear. And also, I think one of the last things that were mentioned it's about funding and about the way in which those funds are indeed used. So I think that's also a very important discussion, how we can improve both the supply of funding, I mean, like the targeting, but also how we can help those who receive the funds to use them in the best way. So this is pretty much what I managed to collect. I mean, I think in general we're really fruitful 2 hours, and I somehow feel a bit relieved, as I said, because I mean I really believe. No, but seriously, because this is I really believe that we can. It's not a mirage to think about in the future, in the long term, of a full complementarity. It's an harmonious symbiosis between humans and machines, and which I mean, like at the end of the day, we are also discussing about that. But I mean, in order for that not to be a mirage, in order to avoid this attrition, robots that steal our jobs, I mean, like, we need to have like these concrete steps. We need to to visualize them, and we need to offer them to people in order for them to believe in them. Because I mean, like, the anxiety that we perceive is also, I think, due to the fact that people don't see concrete instruments to address those potential fears. You don't know what's going to happen to you when robots will take over. So thank you very much, because I mean, like, with this, I mean, like, I think we all feel a little bit more relieved. Finally, a last word of gratitude, well, for the speakers I already said, but also for all those who contributed to organize this, in particular Lucy, Alexander, and Heidi. Well, I dealt with you. I mean, so I don't know who else. I mean, but I mean, I think it was, very well organized, everything, and thank you very much for. So maybe a round of applause.